Hello. I'm not sure whether this is a good format in which to make a video. I'm always tired of this blank background and everything, but I thought I'd rather improvise this one in video format, talking about Mario 64 again, and specifically maybe a way in which you could divide the castle into three sections, which would be the entrance floor, the basement floor, and the second floor of the castle. These seem like a way that you could divide the castle up into three parts, because, well, aren't there keys involved? I think there's a key involved in order to reach these three places. So they're locked, they're like sort of separated one from the other. And I was thinking, well, one of the characteristics that seem to divide them in my mind, kind of thing, is possibly the character of the situations you're involved in these three places. So, for example, in maybe the upper floor is the most clear, and I've spoken about this again and again, but I kind of want to just get it a bit more clear in my head, so to speak. The top floor has got a sort of optical illusion character to it. You know, the infinity staircase is a good example of that. It seems like it's a staircase that you should be able to walk up, and at some point you would reach some destination, and yet you don't. It just goes on forever. The tiny big island paintings, right? It seems like it's really close, but actually it's really far away, or vice versa. The painting seems like it's in a different position than what it is. The mirror room, I think, fits that description, although more than an optical illusion, it's kind of some weird paranormal thing that's happening, right? Where a mirror that is reflecting a painting lets you know where you could jump into that position that the painting might be in the wall, even though you can't see it. So there's some strange kind of, I wouldn't call it an optical illusion perhaps, but there's some optical stuff going on. You're able to, maybe you could say that you perceive things that are not very obvious immediately. It's not obvious that there should be a painting on this wall because the painting is invisible. But you can perceive the painting by looking at the mirror. And that shows you that there is a painting, even though it looks like there isn't. I would say that this is my way of describing the character of this whole floor. It looks this way, but it isn't. Or it looks like there's something there, but it isn't. Right? Tiny huge island. It looks like the painting is far away, but it isn't. It's really close. The other example I gave, Infinity Staircase. Infinity Staircase, obviously, again, some sort of paranormal thing going on. Some sort of magical spell has been cast because the perceptual strangeness of the Infinity Staircase doesn't stop at will, right? It only stops when you've I can't remember what it was. You've obtained a certain number of stars, I suppose. But in any case, right, sometimes it's a finite staircase, sometimes it's an infinite staircase. Even though it's the same location in space, it seems to offer two completely different ways of relating to it that seem to be mutually contradictory. I guess that could also be another way of describing it, right? So I feel like some conglomeration of those themes might describe the top floor for me. Of course, I'm ignoring many of the other paintings and worlds in the top floor because I want to see if this theory kind of holds any water. So I just want to talk it out loud and see if it ends up making any sense, basically. So that's my theory, that there is at least some aspect of that to the top floor. So then, what could I say about the middle floor and the bottom floor? The bottom floor calls out to me for several reasons, but they're kind of quirky and weird. So I'm not sure again how how real they are as evidence of some theory that I could make for art analysis sake of this work of art. I guess, but that's another question. Anyway, so the bottom floor. We have these bunnies running around that are called MIPS. Now, obviously, this is something I should have researched before. I'm not entirely sure if MIPS is like the official name, but I think it is because I seem to remember that they are called MIPS by the developers of the game, because MIPS is the name of an architecture or some sort of low-level assembly language, like a low-level programming language that the programmers were using to make the game, or maybe they weren't, but maybe because they were programmers, they're kind of into technology, so they gave it that name. I'm not entirely sure now what the whole idea was. But MIPS is certainly a computer science thing. And I think it has to do with low-level stuff, like how the hardware interacts with itself at a really low level. That's my sense of it. I could be wrong. So when I hear that, my thought is like, it's kind of interesting, poetically speaking, that these rabbits should be down below on the underground level of the castle, because they refer to low-level concepts in computing. Now, of course, that's kind of more of a reading that I'm making of this. But I suppose it got me thinking about these things, that there are other low-level, and by that I might mean close to the hardware, so to speak, in computer terms, close to the hardware and material, close to the material elements of what is being discussed, that have to do with the low level of the castle. And one of these, this is a really weak argument, I think, but it's that several of the worlds in this basement feel to me to have a lot to do with basic elements. Like a desert is a world of sand. A lava world is a world of lava, of fire, so to speak. There is one of the levels, it's basically all water. There's barely any solid ground. It's just like a water world. In fact, I think the original Japanese name for that level, which I think is, I can't remember its name in translation, but in Japanese, I think it is called Water World in Japanese. I may be wrong. I will try to put that on the screen. But, so, again, these are things I have talked about in other videos, where I'm trying to put them into some order in my head in some way. These are not the only ways you could interpret or read these levels, of course. I understand. You could just as much say that the levels on the top floor or on the middle floor are elemental, because there's snow levels, there's there's a volcano level. Tiny Huge Island is a volcano level. Why isn't that evocative of fire? And so on. So these are questions I want to try to get to, but I have an intuition about this that there feels to me to be something in the low level where it is, you tell me if you feel this is wrong in some way, but I want to at least propose this, make this suggestion that the low level could be read as a more material kind of world. Sand, fire, water, hazy maze cave. My original feeling about this was that it has to do with gas, because it seems to be filled with haze, a hazy atmosphere, and there's these gaseous things floating around. So it also has to do with like air, a polluted air or clean air. I don't know, some sort of basic material elemental thing. Okay, if we put this aside for a second, let's look at it in the context of the other stuff. What could I say about the top floor if I assume that the bottom floor is material? Well, suddenly, the top floor, with all its complications about optical illusions and so forth, and things appearing to be a certain way and then appearing to be another way in a different context, right? Things appear to be this way or they appear to be that way in different contexts. And even, as I said, there's a slightly paranormal, mystical character to it, where sometimes it's not even clear whether there is an optical illusion at play or not, so to speak. So, for example, in the infinity staircase, is the true infinity staircase the finite one or the infinite one? You know, is the infinite staircase an illusion that surrounds the real finite staircase, and then once that illusion is dispelled, you gain access to the real staircase? Is that what's happening? Or in the mirror room, is the painting, right? The mirror room is a more striking example, maybe. Is the painting that you're entering into, is it on the bare wall that you jump into? Are you jumping directly into that wall, and that's what takes you to the painting? Or is Mario in the mirror jumping into the painting in the mirror, and that's why you're going to the snow world? I can't remember what it's called, right? Is Mario in the mirror the one who's jumping into that world? I feel the game is trying to play with that idea. That's my suggestion. That the idea of, is this perception the correct one, or is that perception the correct one? You know, themes of this nature, we can maybe explore them more. But because of this, it feels to me that therefore perspective as a whole, subjective perspective, seems to be the theme of the top floor. And if it is the theme of the top floor, then perspective and perspectival shifts and contexts, you know, this seems this way sometimes and it seems this other way sometimes, that perspective may offer a contrast to the material themes in the lower world, because maybe we're dealing with precisely that which is slightly, I don't even know. At this point, I'm not sure how to define it, but I hope you catch my gist. My gist. I don't know. Like, that perspective to me seems to be something that is almost the opposite of matter in a certain way of reading things. But probably, see, at this point, I think I don't know enough to go deeper into this, so I'm going to leave it at this. But these are some themes I want to start exploring more if I can. So I lay them out, and I will continue exploring them when I've thought some more about them. Okay, yeah. So thanks for watching. Bye.